Hello again, fish-a-lots. Let's face it, who doesn't want to catch a nice big fluke or flounder, depending where you live in the country? They're super aggressive, they're easily accessible, and they're absolutely delicious to eat. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 2 rigs that you need to know for fluke fishing that will catch you fish 95% of the time out there in any fluke fishing environment. So stay tuned. I think you're going to enjoy it. Before we tie the rigs, I just want to touch on the leader material really quick. This is going to be high-vis monofilament. You know, you could use fluorocarbon or monofilament for these rigs. Doesn't really matter. Just one of the bad pieces of advice out there is that you need really heavy mono for fishing or fluoro when you're fishing out there in the ocean, and that's just not true. 20-pound test line is really all you need. You don't want to go too heavy because this line will catch in the current and will make it more difficult to get this rig into the strike zone. So first up on the only 2 fluke rigs that you need to know is going to be the bucktail rig. Now the bucktail rig is going to be my personal favorite. It's what I'm going to use most of the time when I'm out there fishing, whether that's back bay fishing, around the ocean, shallow water, deep water. This is the most versatile of the rigs. So first step is you just take your line, you fold it over, and you're going to tie a very simple surgeon's loop knot. Now, this is not going to be a knot tutorial by any means, so if you want to check out knots, go ahead and click in the description below. I'll leave a bunch of them there. I covered a lot in my channel, but a surgeon's loop knot is simply you just make a loop, you make a second loop, and then you take this first loop, pass it through the second loop 2 times, okay? 1 and 2, and that's it. That's your surgeon's loop knot. Now you tighten it up, and you're good. Now this is where your bucktail is going to go. Now, the reason why a surgeon's loop knot is so important is because it's a weak knot, okay? Now, you may say, well, why would I tie a weak knot if I have a $10 bucktail right here that I'm gonna be fishing with? And the answer is because you're fishing on the bottom with this lure, and when you get caught up, you wanna be able to break it off so that you salvage the rest of the rig, which is why surgeon's loop knot is so awesome. So all you do is take your bucktail, you put it through the loop, just like that, cinch it all up, and you're ready to go. So that's your bucktail all rigged up right there. Now, the other beautiful part about this this knot right here is that if you want to change, you know, your weight or your color or whatever, you just kind of slide the bucktail back out, just like that, and then you're good to go. You unwrap it, it comes right off, and then you can put a new one on, okay? So there you go, that's a surgeon's loop knot, and that's your first connection to this rig. So next, what I wanna share is the second loop that you're gonna make is gonna be a dropper loop knot. What you want to do here is you want to pick where you're gonna put this dropper loop knot based on where you wanna test 2 strike zones. So the bucktail is gonna be on that bottom strike zone, close to the bottom. So what I do is, I wanna test the top of the strike zone. So I wanna put my dropper loop knot about 2 feet above this bucktail right here. This way, I know if the fish are hitting this bucktail, they're more in tune to that bottom piece of the strike zone. And if I'm getting more fish up here, the fish are higher in the water column. They're looking to hunt down bait higher in the water column. So I'll tie on a dropper loop knot higher up. The way you tie a dropper loop knot is you simply make a loop just like that. You hold the loop with both pieces of your middle finger there, and then you just twist these 2 top lines 5 to 7 times. So I think that's 5. You make a loop, you grab your bottom line, and you pass it up through your loop just like that. Now I gotta use my teeth to cinch it down. Give me 1 second. There you go, so that's your dropper loop knot. You tighten it down, and you are good to go. That is a much stronger knot than the surgeon's loop knot, so less likely to break away. Now, a question I get on the dropper loop knot is how big do you make this loop? And the answer is however big your hook is or your lure is or whatever it is that you're passing through the loop. So you can tell right there, there's my loop, there's my hook I'm using. That's a perfect size because that will fit the hook in there easily, but it's not too long or I'm gonna tangle everything up. Here's the hook, here's your loop. Here's a little trick. I always use an offset hook like that, and I'm gonna show you exactly why here in a minute. So I put the loop down away from the hook point, I come back, and you loop the hook just like that. Now look at that. The reason why I use this offset hook right here is because this line is super straight. coming off that hook. You see that? Now you see that line wants to bow out a little bit on me on the hook. So another trick is you could take your loop, and when you wrap it, you just put a twist right there in the loop right there, and then pass the hook back through the twist. And check this out. See how that twisted around the hook right there? Now you have a more secure setup. And just look at how straight that line is coming off the hook. That's so important because when I'm presenting a piece of bait or a gulp lure or something, I want it to be straight. I want it to look as natural as possible. And this is the best way to do it. If you use a straight shank hook, let me get this off. You'll see it doesn't do that because of the nature of the hook. So there's a straight shank hook. There's no curve in that eye right there. And if you bait it up, I'll do it the exact same way. Put it down, loop it, take a look. There's an angle. See that angle in the hook right there? That angle is not going to be good for your lure presentations. Even a piece of bait that you put on there, it's just not going to look natural, and you're most likely going to try to helicopter it, right? So it'll spin around because it's not straight. So don't do that. Always use an offset hook, just like I showed you, and that'll make your life just so much easier. So there you go. So there's your hook. I'll pass it through. Now to finish off the bucktail rig, you're gonna come up a little bit further on the rig. And for this, you're gonna put a swivel on here. And so what I like to tie here is a figure of 8 loop knot. Now the figure of 8 loop knot is gonna be the strongest of all the loop knots we just tied. And the reason for that, of course, is, again, I want to be able to salvage this rig if I get it hung in the wreck or whatever. So to make a figure of 8 loop knot, you simply fold your line over, okay, just like that. Here's your first loop, here's your second loop. You take this second loop and you just turn it towards yourself, just like that, making an 8, and you pass it right under that first loop. Now, if you get an 8, something that looks like this, you did it right, go ahead and cinch it down. If you don't get this, you didn't do it right, undo it, do it again. And now you just add your swivel. So here you go, swivel. Same thing like the bucktail. You're just gonna pass it on through, and there you go. So now there's your rig. So here's your bucktail, that's gonna go on the bottom. This is a surgeon's loop knot. Of course, you have your dropper loop knot up here on your hook, and then of course your swivel right here. And this is my favorite rig, but it is limited when you're dealt with a heavy current situation. So something to know about bucktails is if ever you're bottom fishing with a bucktail, you're drifting, especially for fluke, and you're dealing with a lot of current, I do not go any more than 4 ounces on my bucktail. Now that is just my personal preference. You could get away with 5 ounces, but for me, I don't go any more than 4 ounces because I feel as you get up there, 5 ounces and above, this does not look natural on the bottom. It's just too heavy of a bucktail. Now for high current situations or situations where you need to use more than 5 ounces of lead, you're gonna use this chicken rig. So first step with the chicken rig is just the surgeon's loop knot, right? You make your loops, you take that first loop, pass it through the second loop, and there you go. There's your loop. That is where your weight is going to go. Okay, this guy right here, right there, okay. Now your first dropper loop knot, unlike the bucktail rig, is going to be very close to this surgeon's loop knot. Remember, in the bucktail rig, that bucktail was serving as that bottom hook closest to the bottom strike zone. So now that there's just going to be a weight on here, you want that first surgeon's loop knot to be pretty close to that weight. This way, I'm still fishing in that very bottom of the strike zone. If you come up with something like that when you make your loop and it's about that far away from the surgeon's loop knot, you are doing great. So let's go ahead and make our dropper loop knot. 5 to 7 twists. There you go. So now you have your weight, and now you have your first hook. And as you can tell, if your weight is here, that loop right there, that hook is just right off the bottom. Even if you're scoped out a little bit, that is still only 12 inches off the bottom and well within that Fluke's bottom strike zone right there. Now, very similar to the bucktail rig, again, what I want is I want my second dropper loop knot with the hook on it to be about 2 feet above this first hook. So what I do is I measure about 2 feet. I typically eyeball it. I tied a lot of these rigs, and you're gonna make your second dropper loop knot. So just like this. Okay, so here's my second dropper loop knot, my first dropper loop knot, and of course my surgeon's loop knot. And then to top it off, again, I'm gonna use a figure of 8 loop knot. I'm gonna make my loop, I'm gonna fold it, just like that. I'm gonna take that, turn it towards me, Pass that underneath. You see I got that figure of 8 right there. I'm good to go. And there you go. Now you start rigging it up. All right, so first let's put on the swivel. Pass it through. There you go, good to go. Top of your rig. Now I got to pass through the hook. There we go. Again, I use that off-centered hook. There you go, perfectly straight right there. Love it. Second hook. There we go, pass through the second hook. And again, these dropper loop knots are just as big as I need to pass my hooks through right there. And then of course, the huge difference here is a big old weight to get this rig down in the water column when you have really strong currents, you're fishing really deep, and there you go. So here's your weight, there's your first hook, there's your second hook, there's your swivel, and this is the chicken rig. And all right, so now that we established the effectiveness of a chicken rig, there's a lot more you could do with this, right? You could use some plastic tubing in there on top of your hooks. You could use some Mylar, right? Things like this for some extra flash under there. You can even use some pre-rigged hooks, something like the Tsunami Glass Minnow. Of course, you could combine some floats. These are glow-in-the-dark beads. These are regular beads to prevent damage to your hooks from your weights. I mean, there's just a ton you could do to really amp up this rig to catch you most amount of fish. Now, if you are interested in knowing exactly how to balance these hooks with these different pieces of gear right here to catch most amount of fish, go ahead and click on this video right here. We go deep into exactly how to apply all this to really pimp out your rig, so to speak, to take you to the next level and catch us a ton more fish. So thanks for tuning in, Fish-A-Lots. I'll see you out there on the water.